1970s plastic pipe fittings. Here's an 1.5" Genova Pvct fitting. You'll notice how it's this odd beige color. That's because in the 60s and 70s they made PVC fittings beige. They stopped doing that in the late 70s, early 80s. Now you notice how this Genova fitting is an odd feature. These weird nubs. And those were made for these Genova twist lock plugs. They started making these in 1972. Genova was founded in 1962, so Genova fittings didn't have nubs for 10 years. Now this is the older design of twist lock plugs. They stopped making them this way in 1981. In 1981, they added these screw slots, that way you could use this with any PVC fitting, even if it wasn't Genova. Now this is the older 1970s PVC fitting. Here's a Genova T fitting from the late 70s, and you can see how the nubs are a little bit different. My only guess is this is the one with the 1960s mold, and they just added nubs to the 1960s mold, and the mold went bad, so they changed it out with the 70s one. I think there was a 60s design that was different than this. I'm not really sure. But with these T fittings, you can only use them upright like this. You cannot use them on their backs because it would violate the plumbing code. So this would be the P-trap, this would be the vent, or this would be the drain. Or if you're using this as a clean-out T, this would be the clean-out, and both of these would be the drain. Now here's another Genova fitting. This one could be from the 60s even. This is Genova, PVC, some sort of part number. They still use all the old Genova part numbers today. Genova's still around. Doesn't really say NSF anywhere. Now this is a repair coupling, so you'd slide this onto a pipe and you wouldn't have to worry about the stop getting in the way. There's a Genova male adapter. Screws into a female threaded fitting. Genova NSF DWV, UPC, same part number. Here's a Nibco PVC fitting. All these Nibco PVC fittings kind of have the same look. You can see it says Nibco. That's the older Nibco logo. It looks like the part number, NSFDWV. This is used the same way as the Genova fitting, except it didn't have nubs. Here's a Nibco ABS fitting. Older Nibco logo, NSFDWV. I don't know what all that is. I don't know if that's a part number. It says UPC. They don't put UPC on too many fittings anymore. Now this is actually the wall elbow for a P-trap. You can see it's a uni nut, and that would go onto the male threads of this elbow. Now let's take a look at some U-brand fittings. Here's a U-band street vent elbow. Now it has two part numbers, one here and one there. So my only guess is that's the part number for this alone, and maybe that's the part number for this with a U-bend to make a P-trap. I'm not really sure. It's actually the newer U-brand logo. U-brand went out of business in 1992. NSFDWV. Pretty much the same on the other side. U-brand is really the only brand that put Made in the USA on their fittings. All the other brands made fittings in the USA, and they still do now. Here's a U-brand ABS fitting. It's a lot like the Genova fitting, except it's ABS. So you'd screw this into a female fitting, and you'd glue an ABS pipe into it. Newer U-brand logo. 1.5 inch. And they put ABS black, PVC white. I don't know why they did that. Kind of silly, because then people mistake that old beige PVC for CPVC. Here's a fitting made by U-brand, a lot like it, except it's PVC. That's the old U-brand logo. Now here's some U-brand CPVC fittings. Here's a 3/4 inch CPVC elbow. The old U-brand logo, CPVC, 3/4. I'd assume that that's the part number. It's just a reinforcement to make sure that the fitting doesn't crack. Here's a U-brand bushing. So this would actually work with this elbow. So you'd slide this in, you glue your 1/2 inch CPVC pipe into it. Now here's an old GSR fitting. Now this is actually Schedule 40. It looks like Schedule 80, but it's Schedule 40. Back then they made the beige PVC, but they also made the Schedule 40 gray PVC. GSR, PVC, NSF Schedule 40. So it does say Schedule 40. And it looks like some sort of hub reinforcer. I think that GSR would use chalk to make their white fittings, because they know that old GSR fittings that were white were very brittle. I'm not really sure, but I do have a plumbing book from 1977 that talks about that.